Thanks so much for that incredible welcome. I feel as if you've been having wonderful days here. As well, I just want to thank the organisers. You've done an incredible job. I had no issues in getting to Limerick. I think I have normally more issues on my commute to work and, you know, so I was surprised how easy it was to get here, and I wish I could have joined you sooner. And I've dressed in pink today because I know this is the third day of conferencing. So I'm hoping that this colour will give you lots of energy. I know there's been lots of wonderful ideas and practices shared. Um, and so I have really sort of wanted to concentrate and think about the residencies that we do at Stuart Hall Library in particular. But I am going to also explain how those residencies spill out into other ways in our programming. So I've addressed you here as dear librarians. And now the reason I've done that is because I kept saying to Tavian Hunter, who is our library and archive manager, I said, I feel like a bit of a fraud because I'm not a librarian. And I have worked on lots of projects with libraries, but it's not until I really worked with a librarian that I realised that I had really been working with, let's say, more of a collection of books in a very interesting order that no one would be able to find the book that they needed. And over time, I have really learnt so much from the Stuart Hall Library archive, librarians and archivists there. But so I've written this almost like a letter, but I will branch out into the presentation. So, dear librarians, I'm just going to get to that. Yeah, okay. I wanted to write a letter to express my gratitude to you today. While I have been the artistic director at Innova, I have learnt so much from the library and archive manager, Tavian Hunter, who some of you may know, and our library and archive team. Well, I have always loved libraries and marvelled at how a librarian could find a book in a room full of books. I never understood the work it took to maintain and care for a library. Keeping things in order is a daily task, but the joy that it brings to navigate these orders and systems and understand why they exist is quite another. We have the pleasure of hosting the Stuart Hall Library at Innova, and before there is any confusion, we, the library, are named after Stuart Hall because he was our first chair, and his passion for articulating lived experience in his words. So it's not a library belonging to Stuart Hall, but it is a library named after him. We do have, though, some books that were donated to us by his wife, Catherine Hall. What is wonderful is that Stuart would often annotate writing. So if you were lucky to pick up one of the books that was in Stuart's library, you will notice his writing is in the margins. And this marginalia is why I called the keynote today, Scribbling in the Margins, because it not only refers to Stuart Hall's thinking and process of writing and overwriting thoughts, but also of how artists, when invited to the Stuart Hall Library, engage with the space. That's not to say that they scribble in the margins of our books, but it's to say that they are writing and rewriting with their practice and thinking alongside the books within our library. We invite artists in three main ways. In our core programme through Artistic Research Network, the Stuart Hall Residency, and through making exhibitions that sit with the Stuart Hall Library. Our first artist in residence was an artist called Ting Ting Cheng, originally from Taiwan and based in London. And she was really interested in reimagining the Stuart Hall Library as a marooned island. The Stuart Hall Residency is a partnership between Innova and Stuart Hall Foundation. We make an open call, and often we use a text from Stuart Hall which creates the theme for the residency. The artist usually stays with us for a period of 3 to 4 months, and would come 2 to 3 days a week, depending on the availability of the artist. And when we invite artists, we ask them why they're interested in doing the residency. And at the library specifically with our collection, because we want to make sure that their research and thinking is something that we can support with our collection. As a result, Ting Ting's residency, she produced an audio guide and walk and map. Library users could take a journey of 45 minutes around the library using an MP3 player and headphones. And I'm just going to see if I can just play a little excerpt, which I hope is going to work, but we'll see. I'm just going to, by magic.
Ting Chen, I'm an artist. I am originally from Taiwan. I moved to London in 2008, and I've been based in London since then. Today we will be talking about my new project I did during the residency on the desert island. We are at Stuart Hall Library at Innova. The work is an audio guide walk map. So when audience is entering the library, they will receive an MP3 player and a headphone. And the whole journey is around 45 to 50 minutes. So basically, I include the BBC radio show Desert Island Disc, first aired on 13 February year 2000 with Professor Stuart Hall and presenter Sue Lawley, and the voiceover who gives directions to the listeners to continue the journey of where to go, turn left and right to the next point. During the audio walk, the voiceover implied that the audience is being cast away on a desert island. So I want to make the library become the desert island, and every shelf become a part of the island, and every books become part of the props that you encountered in the desert island. There are different materials inserted in the books as part of the journey, such as photos, news clips, objects, postcards, artworks, things like that. All the books and the insertions are related to the conversation between Stuart Hall and Sue Lawley. And it's like little clues in different corners of the library that you walk around to explore the island, to finish the journey, to figure out where you are and who you are. So first, when I came to Stuart Hall Library to do the research for applying for the residency, I encountered several materials from Professor Stuart Hall, and most of them are writings in the forms of books. However, what really grabbed my attention was the audio archive Desert Island Disc. Professor Stuart Hall and Sue Lawley talked a lot about his personal experience as a Jamaican immigrant and the history of the country, the Windrush arrival, and the future of the country in terms of racial relationship and multiculturalism.
The items relate to the conversation that you are hearing, as Ting Ting Cheng explained, between Sue Lawley and Stuart Hall. Ting Ting enjoyed our audio archive, and so one thing we have learnt from Ting Ting is the way in which the Stuart Hall Library, as well as Stuart Hall's writings, continue to be pertinent and hold relevance. We have found that our social and political conditions mean that there will always be a specific interest in different sections of the library over time. And the library, or each book, can become a portal to other times. And often artists are looking for inspiration or strategies for how artists have responded to the social and political impact of their artistic practice. The next collective I wanted to talk about was Squirrel Nation. Squirrel Nation are queer artists and researchers Caroline Ward and Dr. Arimma Ochu, who spent time accessing the incredible array of books, films, magazines, and zines. To mark the end of the residency and to share their research further, they developed a public event with us. Through the residency, the library informed several short film prototypes, The Age of Our Making and Data Critter, exploring the Anthropocene and post-human perspective on how deeply entangled humans, non-humans, and matter are, with a view to considering our interconnected planetary agency. Their films, Nature's Switch and Data Critter, also became archived at the Stuart Hall Library. Their work spans installation and live events in a range of public settings, from an urban mushroom farm reimagining the future of food in the climate emergency to moving image. So the second note to make here is how the residency also enriches existing projects and practice, as well as giving life to others. As the public event at the end of their residency time, a participant made drawings and also opened up the idea of zining as a way of reporting on research. So there's also an aspect of the unexpected, not that you can always plan for that, but we try to facilitate what comes out of these research modes. Our third recipient, Alicia Rogalska's research-led interdisciplinary practice focuses on social structures and the political subtext of the everyday. She mostly works in specific context-making situations, performances, videos, and installation in collaboration with other people. Her projects are attempts to practice a different political reality in the here and now and create space for many voices to be heard and coexist, whilst searching for emancipatory ideas for the future. The residency culminated in a screening and discussion, and her work, Citizens of Nowhere, developed during the residency alongside 2 other videos. The 3 works are concerned with issues of citizenship, immigration and identity through the lenses of classification, methods and systems, legal fictions in immigration law and lived experience of statelessness. So you can see that each residency so far produced a moment where the artist was able to share their practice through an event, and through the next iterations, you'll see the start and the development of the residencies into exhibition content. So when I joined Innova, it was that wonderful year of 2020. I had only spent maybe 2.5 months at the Stuart Hall Library before we had to close. Rosa Johan Udo had been selected as the artist in residence, and we decided to continue with her residency even though she wouldn't be able to be in the library. So she had the misfortune of the residency taking place without the library itself, but what Rosa decided to do was to utilise the time to read texts of Stuart Hall in her home. And then a year later, Rosa mounted an exhibition at the Stuart Hall Library that showed all her screen-based work embedded within the library. I really love seeing the library used in this way. And because all the work had headphones, it didn't disturb daily library users. Rosa Johan Udo is an interdisciplinary artist working towards radical self-love, inspired by Black feminist practice and writing. Through performance, installation, ceramics, video and sound, she explores an infatuation with places, objects and celebrates celebrities in British popular culture and the effect of these and the effect on self-formation. One of the unrealised ideas that Rosa and I talked about was because Rose really thinks about performance, and she utilises performance to think about celebrities, was whether she would be able to embody Stuart Hall. So when you came to the Stuart Hall Library, that you would meet this character of Stuart Hall. We haven't realised that project yet, but it's something that we still talk about. For those of you who were at the last year's conference, you would have met choreographer and poet Rohan Ayinde and heard his experiences during the residency. He was the first artist who wanted to draw on the walls of the library, and we were quite nervous in asking Tavian Hunter, the library manager, about how she felt about it. We also painted one of the walls in the library as well. We painted it back, but we wanted to really explore the fabric of the library. As an extension of the drawings that Rohan had made. These drawings were made collaboratively with an artist and dancer, Yewande Yoyo Adudmi, and they are scores to movements that Rohan recorded on sugar paper. One opportunity that I think we have missed here was the opportunity of having dance and potentially movement within the library through re-performing the scores that mark the walls. I love the different ways in which artists have utilised their time in the library. For Rohan, I noted a marked difference from his grappling and grasping at words to think about his abstract drawing, and the real clarity in the language that he developed by the end of his residency to talk about his practice of abstraction. In the library, he looked at the works and books of Aubrey Williams and Frank Bowling. And Frank Bowling actually is a neighbour of ours. And so eventually they had an opportunity to have a conversation. For us, it was also recognising that how artists see themselves in dialogue with artists that are held within our library collection, and offers an opportunity to make clear and to create clarity around questions of identity. We have really been learning about our collection through other people's interests, and the artist, I would say, Orsod, who's an artist as well as the director of the Stuart Hall Foundation, came and spent time at the Stuart Hall Library for a period of a year. Now, it wasn't a residency, but he would come once a week, and we brought out materials from the archive that followed his research and thinking into the idea of anti-colonial ways of seeing, thinking about the visual practice that has formed a wider global politics of solidarity across freedom struggles in various countries, and how our archive and library collection spoke to his research questions. The exhibition, Shifting the Centre, was one of the exhibitions I really enjoyed seeing a dialogue between our own archival material and our library collection. As a process, it really brought together our curator, Beatrice Lobo, and our archivist, Caitlin Corentin. So it's really also important to recognise that that there is an incredible infrastructure of support for artists when they come to do a residency. It's not only the library and archive manager, they really have a dialogue with the assistant librarian, Charlotte Mewey, with the curator, Beatrice Lobo, with our archivist, Caitlin Corentin. And I think it's through the dialogue with all of us in various ways that kinds of builds the infrastructure for their research and thinking. So the last project I'm going to talk about today is the work of designer Dharma Taylor. Now, Dharma actually trained as a menswear designer, and her initial idea of working with us during her residency was to really think about designing a chair. We were really excited about this idea, about having a chair specifically designed for the Stuart Hall Library. But in true residency fashion, Dharma had one idea but ended up with a completely different one by the end. What ended up happening was something quite different. Here is Dharma with our curator, Beatrice Lobo, and you can see behind them a rug that she made as a result of her time of reading, reflecting, and writing in the Stuart Hall Library. That year, reflecting on Stuart Hall's paper, Constituting an Archive, published by Third Text, in spring 2001, artists were invited to apply with research proposals that responded to the concept of the living archive and considered the multiple ways in which an archive, as a site, may hold multiple narratives that are contested. I remember speaking with Dharma, who told me that she was initially overwhelmed with all the books in the library and didn't know where to begin. And she reached out to a friend who told her, just relax into it and let one publication lead to another. And that's exactly what Dharma did. And it was in this process that Dharma started to have recollections of memories of her parents who came from the Caribbean and had sent for a package of furniture and other domestic materials, chairs, tables. And as that idea unfolded, she just started to sketch out what she remembered of seeing this packing container open with all these tightly packed materials. And so the design that you can see behind Dharma is are the kind of patterns and forms and shapes that have informed this design. One of the things I realised is that while the library contains lots of sort of opportunities for inspiration, it also provides the opportunity to really engage with your own thoughts and reflections. So this idea of one publication leading to another, or even one conversation leading to another, is something that really allowed Dharma to explore this design for this rug. It wasn't something that she intended to do, and I think that's the other thing I have to say about the Stuart Hall Library, but libraries in general, is I think that this opportunity to browse or peruse, to see or come up to publications or books that you were not expecting to see, is also part of the research. And it's also fine, especially within the creative and artistic field, to deviate from the plan. And that's really what we want libraries to be able to do, to give space and time for artists, but anyone who is interested really, to explore our library collections. And it is just that, a discovery of sorts that brings you into community of practice, in dialogue with others. The library is many things, but for us at Innova, it's importantly a space for inspiration that we return to again and again, and given new insights through the act of inviting an artist to spend time with us. I hope that you've enjoyed listening to the different ways in which we have engaged with artists, and you can follow our work on Instagram at Innova_arts. Thank you.